Alright, hello class. This video is about pertinent people of past and present. It is part 2 of my biographical series on the lives of the noble humans. This part will go over Rene Descartes and Galileo Galilei. Two people who I highly admire and two who need substantial evaluation and discussion, but this video will suffice for a short bibliographical entry regarding the lives of the noble humans. I will first talk about another entry from Quine, and we will go over W.V. Quine's book, Web of Belief, which was written in 1978. Quote, he says, "Children of science and history base their cultural patterns on logic, on the cognitive, on the verifiable. Kinds of knowledge unfathomable by our cognition, ways of knowing beyond the limits of our logic, are not deserving of our serious attention. We will be interested only in the ways of acquiring and sustaining right beliefs. For proper practice in the sophistication of science aims at truth, whatever it is, not for profitable industry." End quote. And I make a remark here that some beliefs actually become endangered to the point of extinction. Other beliefs have the endurance to grow longer past the phenomenal existence of the greatest empire or nation state. A selected bibliography is that Quine gives is A.J. Ayer's The Problem of Knowledge, J. Bronowski's The Common Sense of Science, C.C. Gillespie's The Edge of Objectivity, C.G. Hempel's Philosophy of Natural Science, Hans Reichenbach's The Rise of Scientific Philosophy, Bertrand Russell's Human Knowledge, Nelson Goodman's Fact, Fiction, and Forecast, and Israel Scheffler's The Anatomy of Inquiry. Most of those publications were written in the 1950s and 1960s, minus one that was written in 1948 and another one written in 1973. I will then begin to talk about Galileo. I'll first go over Galileo, and then I'll go over Descartes. So Galileo wrote the Essayer in 1623. He wrote dialogues concerning the two chief world systems in 1632, and then finally discourses concerning the two new sciences in 1638. Galilei, born at Pisa in Italy in 1564, the same year as that of Shakespeare, died in Florence in 1642, the birth year of Sir Isaac Newton, the Great. 2 years later, in 1644, Rene Descartes published his Principles of Philosophy. Kepler also published his Harmonices Mundi in 1619, the year after Bacon became Lord Chancellor. And Pierre Gassendi, in the same year as that of Descartes, published his Disquisition Metaphysica. Other interesting events occurring around the lifespan of Galileo Galilei was the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588, the foundation of Harvard College in 1636, and the beginning of the English Civil War from 1642 to 1646. Other great thinkers were born during the life of Galileo: Rembrandt and John Milton, Pascal, Boyle, who wrote Skeptical Chemist in 1661, Huygens, who wrote Treatise on Light in 1690, Jean Locke, who wrote Essay Concerning Human Understanding in 1690, Benedict de Spinoza, who wrote Ethics in 1678, and Robert Hooke. As has been previously mentioned, Galileo was born in 1564 and died in 1642. Galileo was also a contemporary of most of the great figures of the scientific revolution, such as Kepler, Brahe, Bacon, Gilbert on the magnet in 1600, Harvey, The Circulation of Blood in 1628, and the great Thomas Hobbes, who wrote Leviathan in 1651. We will discover more about Thomas Hobbes in a future lecture. Insofar I cannot resist the compulsive desire to reflect upon as a historian the great magnum opuses of art, literature, music, and architecture at this position in time, alongside these great achievements. But to put all that aside, Immanuel Kant even quotes that with him, Galileo, quote, a light broke upon all students of nature, end quote. Newton, another figure ending his life as Kant begins, whose own life encapsulates the lives of Gottfried W. von Leibniz, who wrote A New System of Nature in 1695, Berkeley, who wrote Principles of Human Knowledge in 1710, Benjamin Franklin, who wrote Experiments and Observations on Electricity in 1751, and David Hume, who wrote The Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding in 1751. As we know, Hume's work awakened Kant, who went on to inspire Jefferson, on the year of Hume's death in 1776. It was, in fact, Newton who referred to Galileo as one of the giants upon whose shoulders he stood. But what distinguishes Galilei is that he was more than a scientist. He was a philosopher, and in other words, his physics and astronomy contained developed methodological, epistemological, and ontological arguments. His intellectual life divides easily into 3 periods of time. (1588 to 92 CE), where he was a teacher of mathematics at the University of Pisa. There he was an enthusiast for the recently translated mathematical and physical works of Archimedes. From 1592 to 1610 CE, he was a teacher of mathematics and physics at the University of Padua. And then from 1610 to 1642 CE, Galileo was chief mathematician and philosopher in the court of the Grand Duke of Tuscany in Florence. During the first period of time, he wrote a transitional medieval/modern treatise on motion, De Motu, in 1590, which utilized Euclidean and Archimedean mathematics in the description and analysis of flotation, balances, and projectile motion. But the unique shadow of Aristotle was cast heavily over the pages. For instance, in early Galileo defined acceleration as the rate of change of speed with respect to distance. And although this was a very natural, intuitive, obvious, and immediate conceptualization, since we see speed changing with distance, but Galileo's idea was that that definition inhibited scientific development. His new one being that acceleration is the rate of change of speed with respect to time, not distance. This, shall I dare to say, relatively simple point was a difficult achievement in the history of physics. During the second period of time, and for 18 years at the University of Padua, Galileo laid the foundations of his new science of physics. He developed the notations and notions of relativity of perception, circular inertia, the correct law of free fall, and the parabolic analysis of projectile motion. Above all, Galileo made his physics thoroughly mathematical, and consequently he dealt with more abstract and ideal circumstances. Philosophy is concerned with the type of world we know, and with how we know that world. It is absolutely a matter of fact that developments in Galilean physics had philosophical consequences. They challenged Aristotelian naturalism, empiricism, ontology, and methodology. And as far as history is concerned, Galileo's Paduan period was finished by his construction of the telescope and his first observations of our moon and the moons of Jupiter. Obviously, he had definitely converted to Copernican astronomy, not religious sentiments. And during the last period of time, he composed his first astronomical work, The Starry Messenger, in the year 1610. What Galileo realized was that the successful defense of the Copernican hypothesis required a new physics, an altered and or changed philosophy, and most daringly, religion, i.e., theology. In 1615, Galileo was warned by the religious people not to defend the Copernican hypothesis, but Galileo's fire response is indicated by his case, his great dialogues concerning the 2 chief world systems written in 1632. What is outstandingly inconvenient is the fact that he had to appear before the religious inquisition, and after years of being forcibly caged in his residence and put under house arrest, he published his other great work, Discourses Concerning the 2 New Sciences, in 1638. Like it or not, Galileo's work initiated much argument among astronomers, physicists, theologians, and philosophers. Galileo forged a new abstract mathematical physics. He developed a near-modern understanding of the role of experiment in science. He furthered understanding of causality, perception, ontology, and epistemology, and advanced debate in scientific methodology. Only within a few decades of his death, the scientific and philosophical revolution would ultimately triumph. In a sound accord, Galileo's work was indeed heterogeneous, enough for both empiricists and rationalists to claim Galileo as their champion, a tremendous figure, a transitional figure, ending 2,000 years of religion and Aristotelian philosophy. Two works that I want to make mention and sources is Drake Stillman's Galileo at Work, his scientific biography, a Chicago publication in 1978, and Maurice A. Finocchiaro, The Galileo Affair, a documentary history, written at the University of Berkeley, California Press in 1989. Then we go to the life of Descartes. In the next video, we will go over the life of Descartes, and then we will transition to some other important figures in the history of science. Thank you.